Welcome in, listeners, to another episode of Go Be Wyoming. I'm your host, Aaron Gray, and on today's Business Spotlight, we are sitting down with Stephen Mullins in Red Bison Studio here on Main Street here in Sheridan. Stephen, thanks for letting us come in, sitting in your shop, and highlight your business.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming in, man. I think it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Right on.
And we've got Charlie Roberts as the producer.
Hello.
He's helping me out here on this fancy road board here. And anyway, so this is, if you've, first and foremost, anyone listening, if you've never been into Red Bison Studio, you have to come down and just step in, because there's some cool, just pottery everywhere, art. This is a cool little spot here, Stephen.
Yeah, it's been sweet. We used to be around the corner on this little side street called Grinnell Plaza. And then we moved into here last February. And being on Main Street's been crazy. Like, just the amount of more foot traffic's been cool. And we have these huge windows. And so we can put goofy stuff up on the walls. Like, we have some spray painted bison skulls that a buddy did for me. He made Barry Manilope, which is like a antelope head on a human body, which is pretty funny.
Yep.
But yeah, we have a lot of wall space to put pots up on, and it's been really sweet to be in this spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you guys, we'll get into it, but you guys run classes too when that's, quote
There's
unquote.
not like a global pandemic.
Yeah. When it's allowed, quote unquote. But anyways, we'll get into that. But so you had a smaller space over on Grinnell Plaza.
Yeah.
How long has Red Bison Studio, been around?
Been a thing?
Yeah.
Actually, I started a business in like 2012.
Okay.
It was called Red Buffalo Pottery.
Gotcha.
And I was living in Laramie and kind of finishing up. I got a degree to be a teacher and then a fine arts degree.
Okay.
And so I started that at the end of that, and not really doing a ton with it. I was just kind of working out in my garage and working out. These tiny little spaces. And then we moved up here. I got a teaching job in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of evolved into just kind of doing it, trying to build my skills up and doing craft fairs and like weekend warrior type stuff. And then from teaching that just kind of grew steam. And so the craft fairs turned into bigger craft fairs, and then it turned into approaching businesses and starting to do wholesale. Excuse me. And then in 2018, or I resigned from teaching in 2017.
Okay.
Worked for Bighorn Design for a year to try to get things figured out business-wise, because I had no idea. And then I opened up a brick and mortar in 2018.
Awesome.
Which is pretty sweet. And actually, they moved out of that tiny little spot. And he's like, hey, you have first dibs if you want it. Like, just let me know. And I was like, oh, sure.
Yeah.
I never even thought about it. So then we opened into that, and it was such a small space, but it was perfect to get started. And then we were able to grow into this. So
yeah, it's just kind of all about timing and the opportunities,
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool.
I would, how was the transition like from being, you taught, that was about 4 or 5 years, and then, but you were kind of building up. Was the side business kind of gaining momentum? Is that kind of what you were seeing? And when you went to go work at Bighorn Design, or
kind
of walk through that?
When I was like, teaching is a great job, but I was just kind of unhappy with it.
Sure.
It just didn't, you never know until you get going into that thing. And it just wasn't a great fit, I don't think. So then,
right.
But I really liked doing the craft fairs. And so what ended up happening with that is like, just a lot more sales than expected. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, cool. Let's like keep pushing this thing. And then another surprising thing, like I sold like educational books door to door in Michigan, like in like early maybe 2011.
Uh-huh.
And it was cold calls all day long. So like getting used to going up and talking to people and being like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. And getting told no a lot was like something that was very familiar. So that was easy for me to approach businesses and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I do. And if my stuff fit well in their store, it was a good fit.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't, it was like a big learning curve, but then it figured out like.
Sure.
So then that worked well, approaching businesses that made sense for my stuff. And then Bighorn Design, I mean, those guys have just grown like crazy. So it was really sweet watching what they do and how they do. And so, on my end, I just kept getting more sales. And so then it was like, hey, maybe this could turn into something. Mm-hmm. And I think Sheridan was really ripe for when I started doing classes, I think Verdello had started doing classes, and we have the paint post, but
Yep.
I mean, just that scene of like people want something to do, and clay's really cool, cooking's really cool, painting, that stuff. I fit really well into that whole scheme. So,
Yep. Yeah, and then definitely, having that experience as a teacher, that probably really led well into the classes.
Yeah, and it was a huge boon. I mean, like trying to structure yourself for like, okay, this first 10 minutes, I mean, it's just like podcasts. Like we're going to do an intro. I'm going to try to get people, we only have 2 hours. So like people need to feel comfortable. They need to feel good in their skin of being in the class.
Yep.
And then we started rolling. So it was figuring out that setup and figuring out how to talk to people was really good.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Have you always been into pottery? So you went to school, you were going to school to be a teacher in arts.
Yeah.
So is it just something you've always been doing, or kind of did pottery, was it art in general, or did it kind of lead into pottery by itself?
Yeah. So I started going to school, and I was really into sculpture. I wanted to do like bronzes and try to figure that out.
Sure.
And so, I mean, I was in the sculpture department I went to school for a really long time.
That's all right. We all do.
A long time. And so I just I did everything I could, and I really loved it. But, so I started in the art department. I kind of moved around, and I was like, I probably need a job after all this. So then I got into the education department, finished that up, went back to after I got my teaching certificate, I went back into the art department. And so, when that happened, that's when I kind of fell in love with clay. Like I'd done it in high school, but I didn't take it serious until literally at the tail end of of that degree system. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I just loved it. And so, I wish I would have done more and learned more, but at the end it was like, all right, cool. Now I know what I want. And then, I try to go to like a workshop every year. Obviously I couldn't this year because everything got canceled, but I still try to do a workshop every year and learn how to do more. And so
sure,
I'd say at the end, that's when things kind of start grooving.
That's kind of cool. Sometimes people just assume like, oh, you've just been doing it for a long time. And it's actually, sometimes you kind of stumble into it and you're like, I love this. And
like, oh, this is sweet.
Yeah, exactly. And then kind of the opportunity, you were going to school and then doing it on the side and kind of connect with Bighorn Design. And it kind of just, hey, we've got a spot open, a small little space if you want it. And you're like, heck yeah. And
let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's cool too with Bighorn Design, like my aesthetic and like my vision, like really was parallel with their brand already. Mm-hmm. Like, so Surf Wyoming and Bighorn Design are the same thing, kind of, it's the same guy. And so, it was like, man, what I was doing just really aligned well with him. And then how people received my stuff in their store, that was a huge indicator to me, like, oh, okay, I think this could work.
Yeah.
And he's been super supportive the whole time, PJ Tridy, and it's like,
yep,
it's been good to figure that out in that way.
Well, and it's like a mentor, he's helping you out, and that's synergy a little bit, but he can tell you how to do things, and what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah, for sure. So
would you say so your first love was kind of the bronzing and the sculpting? Has that helped you in your design process for all your the pottery? Or if someone comes to you and says, hey, we're thinking of I'm trying to think of, you've done like Wild Candle Company and stuff like that. Yeah. Like when people come to you and they're like, hey, we've got some ideas, has that helped you, or do you kind of have you kind of learned?
Yeah. So I think the overall experience of going to art school was really beneficial. It's like just the aesthetic choices you make. And like, I mean, you are learning how to like create something that is what you want. And so I wasn't very good at the beginning. I was just like, and so the sculpture did help, and it's like, that's all about form and figuring that out. And then I think even like I'm from Gillette, and it had a pretty good like just computer. So I do a lot of digital stuff. And so I learned a lot of those skills early, and then I've kind of fostered that throughout the whole thing. And that's why I taught digital design, and I taught photography and yearbook, and like all those digital skills have actually been a huge boon in the ceramic world. So like Candle Company come and they say, hey, we have this idea and we want this design. And she actually does some really good design work. Right. But it's easy for me to take her good designs and then like, okay, this is going to work in this realm. Mm-hmm. And what's cool about them is they have a very specific like idea that they want. Right. But then it's like they give me freedom to say, hey, this is what we want, but make it look sweet.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think, not to be like, I do a really good job of this, but like I feel like my brain works in a way. It's like, okay, I see where your brand is or what your vision is,
Right.
and I can take that and transform it into like a mug or whatever they want. I think that's where it fits really well with kind of how I work.
Well, and for your brand and for your company, if someone walks up to you and says, "Hey, we've seen other companies or brands with mugs and stuff, and they're maybe pitching to you. You have that in the back of your mind of, well, that might not really work how you want it to. Like, I would try this, and it's and it's not you trying to be like, I know more than you. It's like I've tried it, and I know.
Yeah.
From a design or art aspect, is like that might not be what you actually want.
Right. No, and that's true for sure. And especially with like clay. I mean, ceramic material, you can be like, okay, I want this thing. And it's like, yeah, you have to understand like this is just something dug out of the ground. And we're going to heat these things up to a point where they melt. And like the chemical reactions that go on, they're not precise. Like you can get close, but it's like somebody's like, I need this specific thing, this specific way. And it's like, well, that's not how, maybe huge industries can do that, but that's not how I work. I'm like a small batch.
Right.
A small studio production where it's like, I can get you close to this, but that idea won't work. But we could do this that looks really sweet too. And so it falls in that realm of what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, we can do these things, but it's an art. It's not a science all the time.
Yeah. And sometimes there's trial and error. And
oh man,
what's kind of while we're talking about it, what's one of the weirdest or like coolest things you've been requested to make or try? And you don't have to like call anybody out, but just
I'm trying to think. The weirdest,
or maybe for the listeners, like unexpected that someone's like, "Hey, what about this?"
Yeah, I don't know. Well, so actually, what strangest thing? I just got this new printer, and I called because I'm like, all right, I have this very specific idea. Like these printers you can print any imagery. So I started putting like Clint Eastwood on a mug and like shooting flowers and guns and whatnot. But the guy's like, look, what you're going to want to do with this thing is you're going to go to a funeral home and you're going to say you can print these plaques with these pictures and they're like going to last for thousands of years and they're UV resistant. I'm like, look, man, I don't want to make tombstones. I'm making mugs. And he's like, no, trust me. This is what you want. And I'm like, all right, okay, that's fine. But so that was super goofy. And I've done sinks, and some of the coolest things are like these giant, like dinnerware sets where somebody wants,
sure.
20 plates, 20 bowls, 20 cups, and like fill up this giant table. So those are cool. But
okay.
You get goofy things all the time. Like people bring in, people bring in all these goofy things and they're like, hey, I need you to fix this. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like people brought me plastic looks like fake ceramics or like these old little like figurines. And it's just like people bring in the goofiest stuff.
Okay.
And you're like, I have nothing for you.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
Yeah. That's funny. I didn't even think that people would bring stuff to you to try and fix.
Yeah. Once it's broke, it's broke.
Yeah. Huh.
You can do these cool, like golden inlays and like epoxy things together kind of deal, but
sure.
But
it's not going to be the original. Those the plate sets.
Yeah.
Like were they just like anything weird about those? Like a picture of someone's face, like someone they're eating.
But
something?
I want to start doing weird stuff since I got that printer. Like, so I do a lot of stuff with like Andre the Giant and.
Oh yeah.
Like, so I have my production line and then I have a fine art line.
Okay.
And so the fine art line, I approach galleries and kind of go all over the country with that kind of stuff. But so now that I have this printer, there's this goofy old picture of like Macho Man Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
And they're in like an 80s backdrop, like family picture where Hulk Hogan's arms are on his shoulders,
Yes.
So I've started doing little plates with those, but I think I could replace their faces with anybody's face.
Oh gosh.
And I could be super fun.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of stuff like that now that taking digital and taking this printer, I can like, have quite a bit of fun.
Yeah. Have some cool stuff with it. That's awesome. We interrupt this episode with Stefan from Red Bison Studio. Get to one of our sponsors, Alpha Graphics, a locally owned and operated full-service printing, mailing, and marketing company. Give them a call at 307-674-6277. Let's get back to our interview with Stefan Mullins from Red Bison Studio. Well, let's get into like the nitty gritty stuff here. We were kind of talking about it off air a little bit. So 2020, and this has been your second year here in this studio then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this location?
Yeah, in this location. Yep. So you probably weren't thinking, 2020, during the summer, pretty much the whole year, no classes, so kind of walk us through, beginning of 2020, just how you guys have had to adapt a little bit of, can't get the classes in here. I will say it looks like Wyoming in general. Well, like local businesses here, you're staying busy on the fulfillment side, or I'm missing the word here for,
like wholesale and production.
Yeah, wholesale there. Yeah. But yeah, walk us through how 2020's just kind of been a weird year.
Yeah, it was nuts. So it started out, and it's like, you have all these big plans. Excuse me. And so it was like, okay, at the beginning of the year, I was like, I know I want to try to get into the lower part of Montana, like Missoula, Bozeman, find a couple big shops there. I wanted to try to make a trip to South Dakota and Upper Colorado.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, I just want to find if I can approach 25 retailers and say, this is what I got. And like, that was my big push. And then I was going to continue to do classes, like 2 classes a week, try to up my production, and then try to start reaching out on like a digital level and say, find these bigger kind of branded items.
Right.
And like push real hard. So I was like, all right, here's the goal. And then February hit, and it's like, shit, things just like screeching halt. And so I had, like I said earlier, I try to go to a couple conferences or a couple workshops. Everything canceled in February. And so, February hit, and everyone was kind of like, all right, this should be over in a couple weeks. And then March hit, and it was like, no, this is going to be a long haul.
Yeah. And
so I got pretty fortunate. In November, I set up a deal for Glacier National Park.
Okay.
And they did a large order that they wanted by spring. And so pandemic hit, everything closed down. Sheridan was like a ghost town, like everywhere, I'm sure, for 6 weeks or so.
Yeah.
I bet I had under 10 people come in the shop, which at the time it was a scary thing. And the anxiety levels were way high. Everything was like, I'm like, oh, I guess the doors are going to shut and they're not going to open again, is how I felt. But we had that big order, so we fulfilled that. And then I did get some of that funding to help pay. I have a couple employees, which was sweet to be able to keep them working.
Yeah.
And so, but things drastically changed. So I was doing classes like private events and stuff with groups of families.
Right.
But then I had people get sick in that, so I had to call everyone, and be like, hey, this is going on. And it ended up being just a huge headache.
Yeah.
So I've stopped doing classes, and I haven't done a class maybe since the beginning of the summer.
Okay.
So again, if I'm doing if I'm getting, 15 to 20 people in here a week, that's 80 people in a month. That's a huge loss of revenue. So I was like, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm going to do. And then what ended up happening, that was really sweet. I provide products for a lot of online retailers.
Yep.
So like Go Fast Don't Die, Surf Wyoming, This Farm Wife, all these kind of heavy hitters for me. Like people got their checks, their whatever that was called, those stimulus checks. Yeah. And online shopping like blew up.
Right.
So April was the biggest month I've had. Like,
yeah.
At that time, it was the biggest month I'd ever had. And it was the same with Go Fast. It was the same with these other retailers. Like people were at home and they, and there's this huge push to like support small business, support these people in your community. Like if you have the money, you should be trying to spend with these small businesses. So it worked really well. So that was like this big bump. And then at that time, people started feeling more comfortable to travel. That was like that first big wave.
Yeah.
That went down, and so they said that domestic travel was going to go way up, and so people were kind of tourism, that word, right? they came to Sheridan, they were going to Yellowstone, and they were driving around, and so that got us through. The numbers were low, and then so now I've completely stopped classes, and we upped our kind of online game, and so now it's like my production has gone way up.
Right.
And so now I've started to develop my own brand, my own designs, trying to push that into the world, which has been received well.
Yeah.
And then these other retailers, they're continuing to grow. So I think, I mean, it was tough, especially for brick and mortars. You still hear that stuff's way low, but I already had a web presence, not compared to these other guys, but that has continued to grow on our end too.
Yeah.
So that shift has been good. And if you weren't ready for, like, anyone's thinking of doing a business, I think you need to see where you fit within your local community, but also where you fit in the grander scheme of like your social networking and your e-commerce.
Yep, the e-commerce. Yeah. Yeah, because it's, you still have a space here on Main Street, so you will get people into the store, but, it's, like you said, if you weren't ready for it, you're missing out. And especially when, like you said, people got their stimulus checks, and they were shopping. And
they felt good to support small businesses.
Yeah.
And it does suck not being able to offer classes. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
And that's the goal for like spring. It's like, I still want people to be able to come in here and experience working with clay. Like, I think that is very unique and very like, it's good for our community and it's good like community builder. Like, I want that. But in the other realm, it's like, I know that has a max availability business wise. So it's like, I think I'm going to draw back on that and focus on growing on the production end, because that can go forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like, since the pandemic, the business model has changed, which is good.
Yeah. Which, always got to be looking at it and seeing what the changes are or what the market's demanding. What would you say the response has been? You kind of already mentioned when people got the stimulus checks, they were kind of really trying to support local businesses. But what has been Sheridan's and maybe just like the whole state's response? Like we just had the Christmas stroll. What are you kind of seeing in this holiday season right now for small businesses?
Yeah. I mean, actually, it's like, we are behind on orders, which is sweet. So like, I think the support locally has been really good, and people come in like, hey, we're thinking about you. We want to make sure you're doing good. Like, I had multiple people on Black Friday come in and say, hey, my goal is to only buy from local businesses, like no online.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is sweet. It is like, I have maybe 3 or 4 people working here right now. So it's like, when people decide to come in here and put money in my shop, it's like, one, you're providing, income for a small business, but you're also, helping 4 other people in their town, like buy Christmas presents, buy food, buy clothes.
Yep.
Like, it's a huge deal. And so Sheridan's always been super supportive of what we're doing, which has been really sweet. And then also online, it's like, I push that we're a small batch studio because we are. And I think everyone who's into what I'm doing is like, I want to support that because that's what I'm into.
Right.
And that's been really sweet too. It's not, now it's like, if you can get your message out there, lots of people want to support that idea.
Yep.
So it's been good.
Yeah. Well, and if you're somebody that's scared of going out, it's like, well, we're online, you can still shop, and that was a big push, I know, by the Sheridan County Chamber of Commerce. A lot of the downtown businesses have their online now, and you can still do that. So,
and they had a big push. They were like actively going to businesses, I remember, and saying, hey, are you online? If you're not, we can help you.
Yeah.
Like, let us get you online.
Yeah.
And
that's
so,
awesome.
yeah, which is cool. And I know Sheridan passed the like beer delivery thing, which is awesome. It's like, I think a lot of places did, but it's like, why not? You know, like, 1, you're going to keep that brewery open. 2, you're going to like provide those guys with income to pay their employees. And 2, you can like sit and have a beer at home. Like,
That's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it's a win-win for everyone.
So you're from Gillette originally.
Yep.
What are kind of some things that you went to school in Laramie? What are kind of some things that you love about Wyoming? You started a business here. You're here in Sheridan. What kept you here?
Yeah, and actually, so I graduated, and I think I go back like 5 generations of Wyoming. Which that's cool in its own right.
Yeah.
Like,
Hell yeah.
Saying that. But I remember growing up, I was like, I'm never coming back. I hate this place. Yeah. And so you're young and you go out and you travel, you do your thing. And the cool thing, the very basics of Wyoming is like, I do think they try to take care of their own. Like, school's crazy cheap. Community college is crazy cheap. And they didn't have the Hathaway when I was going.
Okay.
But now they do. And it's like, if you go to community college around here and get any kind of like, small business or get welding certified or anything. I mean, they basically, if you do it right, you're not going to pay any money.
Yep.
So that's what brought me back. I was like, oh, I could go spend $25,000 a year on, on whatever school, or I could go back to Wyoming and get tons of funding and maybe pay a couple thousand.
Yep.
So that's what brought me back. And then, even after graduating, I was like, I think just staying in Wyoming it felt good because it's a smaller place. People are like, Buffalo is a very interesting town. That's where I taught first. I taught in Laramie first at like a treatment facility.
Okay.
For kids, which is like the craziest stories in my life. And then I moved from Laramie to Buffalo, which was a small school, and it was like the community's really good. And so getting into that was pretty sweet. And Sheridan's community has always been kind of small, but also like a lot of stuff going on.
Yep.
Raising a family was a big deal for me. So it's like I have 2 little boys. My wife's a nurse at the hospital here. And so it's like we fit right in. And then the community is comforting. And it's like growing up in a spot like this, you just know if anything goes down, I could walk down the road and go talk to who I need to,
Yep.
And so that's been good for me. And I think Wyoming is gorgeous. Like, you can drive 20 minutes and see crazy vistas around here. And I think just like being open and low population is cool. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Tell me a crazy story at that treatment.
At that treatment facility?
Yeah, in Laramie. So is it like NSI, kind of like a treatment,
just
like
like
a reformative school, I guess is what you would call
And
it.
so those kids, I mean, they've had terrible pasts, but it's like your job. I mean, so I went from working on cottage is what it's called to working at the school to being like an office guy to transitioning into teaching. And it was just like, I'm trying to think. So we had a kid who snuck out at night, and he's like, I know you guys all make so much money here, so I didn't want to steal a car from here. And it's like, dude, we don't make any money working. I don't know what you're talking about. So he snuck into town. I mean, it's outside of town.
Right.
So this guy worked his way, and he thought everyone was on the hunt for him.
Right.
And we had to do checks every 10 minutes. So after 10 minutes, we're like, well, he's gone. And it's this giant prairie. So this kid sneaks into town. Of course, some guy left his keys in this old truck. So he steals this old truck, goes on this huge joyride for like 2 hours until he runs into something. Cops get called. So this kid's like 15, and he's like, oh no, the cops are after me. So he goes on this high-speed chase with these cops. And I'm the guy working that night. So it's like, well, I guess So anyway, he gets in this high-speed chase, jumps on the railroad tracks to try to get away from him, just blows out the tires, blows out the axles, like everything's just destroyed. And so it's like he gets caught, gets brought out, and so everyone has to have a sit down. But it's like that was a very standard like situation of kids just like escaping or breaking things or fighting, like wanting to fight you and bite you, and like it was just like yeah. So
and you always hear those stories here at NSI. They a kid tries to run away or something, and I think that's kind of probably one of the funniest things about Wyoming, because we do have a lot of reformative schools.
Yeah,
but it's like kind of like you said, like. He had to he ran away, but it's like he had to go into town to like find like they're not going to get anywhere,
Yeah. And we had these 2 kids, like we went on this 5-day backpacking hunt. And so we didn't know this. They'd stole a map 2 days before. And I mean, we're in the woods up in the snowies, and these kids like steal this 30-pack thing of hot dogs and bust out in the middle of the night. And we're like, I don't know what they're expecting. So they make it to a road. They say they got lost. Someone gives them a ride to Eagle, Colorado.
Okay.
They rob a couple stores. I mean, it's just nuts. Like, you're like, I had no idea this was even like part of life. And like, so it was just that. I mean, it was kind of a fun job, but crazy.
Yeah. You're probably like, I don't want to do this as a career.
Yeah.
What, Charlie said he's been in a couple classes. What are some of the funniest things? Now you haven't had a class maybe for a while, but what are kind of the funniest experiences you've had with teaching classes to people? Yeah.
I mean, throwing on the wheel is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I think it's funny. People come in and they're like, expecting just to be rock stars and these macho guys like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah. And then after like 20 minutes there's clay everywhere. Like one lady accidentally, she was messing around with something and she took a step off and the wheel took off, and like we put these little wooden bats on there. The bat flew off, crunched this plastic thing that was around it, and the whole thing exploded. Like all this water, clay water, got in this lady's purse right next to her, covered this other lady, and like so huge messes all the time, and just like people getting too drunk, like because you can come in and have a beer or two, but I've had 2 classes where people pre-gamed real hard, and then like, well, first class in here actually, and it was like, you guys got to go. Like, lost their shoes. Like, they're in the car. It was just a mess. And I'm like, I don't, like, what is going on? You know, that kind of stuff. So it's fun. It is really fun. But
yeah. So
like
disclaimer, don't come pre-gamed in here.
Pre-game. Because it's hard anyway. If you're all goofy and loopy, you're not going to make anything. But
that's funny.
You know, it's fun.
Have you had some people, though, that like first time and they're like just pros?
Really good. Yeah. Actually, it's like, and you can tell, it's like a lot. So it's like you're using both hands for the wheel anyway. We did some fun, which I think, Charlie, you did the hand building classes on the tables.
Yeah.
And those are fun too. It's like those are really step by step. And it is still a lot of like knitting things together in the right way, which clay can be hard to work with. It's just like soft dirt. You know? But on the wheel, it's like, one, your eyes have to be like see what's going on, and then both hands have to be working, and you can't push too hard here and you can't push too light here. They have to be level with each, so it's a lot. And people who get it right away, it's like, wow, that's really sweet, because it's not an easy skill.
Yeah.
So there has been a handful. It's like, hey, you should like try to do this.
Yep.
Like as a hobby or something.
Yeah. Like you're really good at it. You should enjoy it more.
You should pursue this, or you know. Well, yeah.
I just had a question and I lost it. Gosh dang it.
It'll come back to you, right?
What are you looking forward to this coming year? You know, obviously, probably, hopefully get back to classes, you know, would be probably something you're looking forward to. But what else, we kind of just talked about how you had plans for this year and it kind of got changed around. But what are some things that you'd really like the studio to, be known for as you keep growing it?
Oh, to be known for? That's a pretty good question. I haven't thought about like what I want it to be known for. I really kind of like the idea of design work. Mm-hmm. So, like it can be super time consuming, and you can make some real turds of designs, but it's like finding a really nice color scheme that fits on a nice like form or mug. And that's like, I really dig that. So there's a couple materials we use that are really bright and vivid. And if you can use that in the right way, that can be really cool. I think like I said earlier, I like the idea of like, okay, here's a problem that I have, or here's this idea. Now I need to take that idea and transfer it to work with ceramic material. So using that as a way to generate new pieces or new designs, I really like that kind of problem solving thing, especially with people being home. So it's like, okay, like I said, I just started doing these ones with Clint Eastwood, and I just did this new design with Bob Dylan. And like his guitar is kind of transforming into this like stem flower, and then I have these like this big bushel of flowers behind him. Mm-hmm. And so all that I think is going to be cool, and like figuring out this new printer that we have and using that design process I'm excited about. And I also think so like trying to match it up so how can I still create this community or this like engagement of a small pottery studio with people at home. So I think for like Mother's Day or whatever, I'm going to make a bunch of these designs of cups and then fill them with dirt and put a couple seeds in there. And then like, we'll be able to pre-package these like things for people to grow at home. And then as the weather gets nice, they can take that and put it back in their garden or whatever. Yeah. I think that kind of stuff is cool. Trying to figure out like, how can I still
get that engagement?
Yeah. Engagement, and create this unique experience for people who are, stuck at home, and who knows what's going to happen by middle of summer. Yeah. So if tourism's up, I know people are going to be jonesing to get out. Yep. It's like, we'll see what happens. But.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, no, it's all about, it's probably everyone's is day by day right now.
Just weird. Yeah. Just weird stuff.
But I guess a couple questions before we leave. What do you got going on over there? We're going to probably take some pictures, maybe do some filming a little bit. What do you got going on at your table there today?
Oh, I try to make, if I can, throw a couple hundred, like 100 to 200 mugs a day. Okay. And so then you throw those things, I try to throw them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We had a lot going on at the beginning part of the week, so I'll throw mugs. They'll hang out on the tables and dry until they're ready to take a stamp on the bottom and get a handle. So I threw some pines yesterday. I threw some mugs. I'll throw more mugs today, and then I have a bunch of like salt and pepper shakers.
Okay.
So I'll put some feet on those, and I can show you guys that. And
Sweet.
yeah, that's what we got
Yeah,
going
we'll
on.
probably do that because just to kind of help you out a little bit. But
Yeah,
just,
right on.
I'm kind of curious, Charlie, you have any questions for him before we end out?
No, it's fun. Come take the classes. They're great.
Yeah, classes are good.
Well, thanks, Stefan, for your time. If anyone has time, come down. You're open usually 10 to
6 Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
I think winter we close early on Saturdays, 10 to 4. But
okay, but yeah, come. Most
we're
business hours. I think that's pretty much what Main Street businesses are doing is like 10 to 5 or kind of that window. Red Bison Studio. They're here on Main Street. You can find their work online. Like Stefan mentioned, they have an online presence, redbisonstudio.com. So can't miss it. And
yeah, it's right there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Instagram's the same thing, just Red Bison Studio.
Yeah, right on. No, I appreciate the plug. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no, thanks for letting us sit down. And for all those people listening, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Yeah, right on. See you guys.